no longer have our best interests at heart. And once those scales drop from your eyes, then so much of it becomes much more comprehensible, and you begin to see it for what it is, which is a wholesale push by the state to take total control of our lives, our money, our diet, and everything else.
Well, it is weird the way they're quite open about wanting us to lead poorer, meaner, ruder lives, just in terms of how we live, what we eat, where we go. They actually say, no, however good it was for you 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's going to be worse for your kids now.
I think that's indicative of what I think is a massive mistake that's being made by them, that I think they think it's all in place now, that the trap has all been assembled and we're in it. And I think they've gone off half-cocked. And I think they're wrong in that estimation. And I think in reality, I think a lot of their narrative is crumbling like, desiccating sand in a sandcastle on the beach, and it's about to fall apart completely. I think so. There's a terrible misconception, I think, on the part of those who think they have us in their clutches. But I think what we're looking at is I mean, there's always been unholy alliances between businesses and corporations and government, for each other's mutual back scratching. But I think we're seeing a particularly lethal iteration at the moment, because the added twist is that now governments are prepared to legislate to make the consumption of, or the submission to, the mission statements and the products of corporations, they're now making it almost mandatory. I mean, what a brilliant business plan, for example, for a pharmaceutical company, hypothetically, to come up with a new medical product, right, and then have a compliant government make it illegal to not take it. Ka-ching, ka-ching. And likewise, if you say if you've got a corporation who, for its own reasons, wants to change the way we eat, that whole philosophy, wants to come up with plant-based or fake meat or highly processed product of one sort or another for which they hold the patent, if you've got a biddable government that will make it illegal to keep cattle, that will make it illegal to grow wheat and barley because they've taken the land away from the farmers, then again, the tills are going to ring loud, because people are left with no option. And something similar is happening with the climate crisis, in inverted commas, where it's now, there are building wind turbines, laying out fields of solar panels, switching people to electric cars, taking away gas boilers, replacing them with heat pumps. We're losing choice. We're even losing the right to refuse. It's becoming, the governments are legislating against us so that we can't even say, no, I actually prefer the old way, I'll stick with that, thank you very much. I'll keep some folding paper money in my pocket, and I'll have a gas boiler, thank you very much. But that option has been taken away. So as I say, I think we're now seeing an iteration of an old problem, which sees a perfect iteration of a business model that for governments and corporations working in concert is a beauty.
Well, it's very weird, because it's attacking the most basic elements of life. I mean, I do believe that if they're serious about getting rid of the internal combustion engine by 2030 or 2035, as most countries are committed to now, Western nations, that means that there's going to be far fewer of us that have individual means of transportation.
I think, to get back to what we were talking about at the top, about using Occam's razor and going for the simpler explanation rather than the more Byzantine, my wife said something to me ages ago now, which has become, it's a thought I hold in my head all the time. She said, it's not about going green, it's about going without.
Right.
And once you accept that, right, I see. So it's not about 30 million petrol or diesel driving car owners in the UK switching to electric. That's unfeasible. There's no way you can put the infrastructure in place to have the availability of that amount of electricity. So it's about most of us not having a car at all.
Right.
And once you start applying that logic, that you start understanding that there's going to be a lot less energy available to the likes of us, so that therefore our homes are colder or smaller, and we have to make all sorts of adjustments based around the simple fact that we won't have access to electricity. They're not going to replace the generation of energy that's been available via gas and coal and nuclear and oil you make that mistake of thinking, well, they're going to replace like with like. No, they're not.
No.
They're going to take away the plenty and leave us with something that's been reduced by orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
And once you start looking at all of the problems, you look at the challenge and you think, how will they get that done? How will they make that happen? The answer is they won't. I mean, it extends out to the crisis in the Channel. If you're agonising over why a nation can't stop people arriving on its coastline, and you're thinking, but for 1,000 years, one way or another, we've been able to monitor, patrol, and protect our borders, and now we've got all the technology on the planet, satellites, and all of the rest of it, and we've got the Royal Navy, and we've got, and we're being told we can't control this. You think, gosh, I wonder what magical solution will have to be found. It becomes easier if you think, well, perhaps that number of people is supposed to be arriving because it disrupts communities and it keeps people who are on edge on edge. And then perhaps further down the line, a government is then able to say, well, we can sort this if you'll all adopt digital ID. And if you'll submit to more of a surveillance society, and maybe we'll tack on universal basic income as a sweetener for some of you. And by that point, an extremely distressed population that's been on its knees and on its nerves for 3 years says, "Oh, thank goodness! It was okay. Sign me up. Give me the QR code in the back of my hand, and away we go." You know, so it's all. I think for me, it's been a great lowering of raised shoulders as I thought, there's a simpler explanation. It's happening because it's meant to happen.
And the thing about it is, once you hit on that, then suddenly all these disconnected phenomena suddenly fall into a pattern. And the interesting thing to say that you said right at the top, Neil, is that this is happening now. They're doing it now because they think they've got the infrastructure in place to impose it, including not letting you eat meat, which is about as basic as it gets, or including excess mortality, 1,000 extra dead people a week, and nobody talks about it. We've had it for 3. It's all very strange, and Neil's explanation is the simplest, and oddly enough, everything that we've talked about fits into it.